Hey guys, just before we get to today's clip, just a quick reminder for all Serie A fans in the UK and Ireland, you can now stream every single match live on OneFootball. No matter which team you're backing, OneFootball's got you covered. You can watch on via the OneFootball app on your phone or connected TVs from Apple TV, Google TV, Samsung, LG, and Fire TV, or on the website tv.onefootball. And what's even better is that you can choose how you watch it. You can grab a team or a season pass to watch all the matches until the end of the season, or just the ones from your favourite club. There's also a match day pass for £9.99 to watch all the weekend's games, or a single match on pay-per-view for £4.99. And yeah, if you missed a live game, you'll still get access to all the match highlights too. So if Serie A is your thing, OneFootball is where it's at. We'll have a link in the description of the episode for you to buy your preferred stream.
Welcome to the Italian Football Podcast.
Next question, Jack Hacken says, Hi Nima and Carlo, question for the pod. Is Mike Maignan finished as a serious goalkeeper for Milan? His individual mistakes have cost Milan again and again this season. In Serie A, in the Champions League, and even in the Coppa Italia against Inter, he's consistently shown moments of lapse whereby his errors have led to deciding goals against Milan, like Igor Paixão scoring for Feyenoord to make it 1-0 in Rotterdam in the most beautiful stadium of Europe, the Kuip. Just for clarity, Jack is a Feyenoord fan. Combine it with frequent injuries, it leads to a lot of questions pertaining to his position. I think personally, Milan need an Italian goalkeeper who better understands the significance and almost divine transfiguration that entails playing for Milan. Could Carnesecchi be a potential replacement for the Frenchman? Considering the speculated Italian revolution at Milan in the news, and the simple fact that he's been the best Italian goalkeeper in the Serie A, in my opinion. Lots of love, Jack. For context, divine transfiguration entails rendering extraordinary results and work consistently under the influence of reverence of religion or other symbols, which I consider Milan to be, considering the prestige and weight of playing for them.
Right. I mean, I don't know about that, but I don't know about that. But listen, is Mike Maignan finished as a top level goalkeeper? I mean, he's 29. He's going to be 30 this summer. So I don't think we can be writing him off based on his age. But if we look at his performance, he joined Milan in 2021 to replace Gianluigi Donnarumma. Massive gloves to fill, literally. Huge. And his first year was absolutely incredible, individually and with the team. They won the Scudetto in the first season. He was pretty much perfect. I thought he was a monster in that first season. Since then, he hasn't really maintained that level. I would say into the next season, and certainly in the last two seasons, we've seen a very up and down Maignan. We've seen a Maignan that's had very high highs with some incredible performances and some saves that only a handful of goalkeepers in the world can save. But then we've also seen some terrible performances from Maignan, like the in the question from Paixão, and some huge blunders and you know, but also added to that, the injuries as well. Maignan's been getting a lot of injuries, too many injuries, missed way too many games. And he's now in a situation, Mike Maignan is in a situation now where they're discussing a new contract. His contract runs out in a year. They're looking to give him a contract extension to 2028 on an increased salary, maybe 5 million a year. And you're asking the question, especially if Milan are not going to be in the Champions League next season, which they're not, do you pay that amount of money for somebody who, you know, is performing up and down like he is, or do you sell him to the Premier League? I think Chelsea are interested in him. Chelsea are looking for a goalkeeper. Do you sell him for maybe 50 million, 60 million if you can get that amount, and then put that money into someone else, maybe pay half of that money for a Carnesecchi or someone else, or Monsada finds a new young goalkeeper. He's very good at that. I think I don't want to answer the question whether he's finished or not, but I would answer the question in the way that I think there's a question, you know, a debate to be had on whether you stick with Maignan or you sell him.
I think it's not just Maignan. I think Theo is in the same thing as well. I look at the Theo situation the same way, and I look at Leao the same way. I think you need to understand that if the Maldini, Pioli, Elliott project is finished and it ended with a Scudetto and a Champions League semi-final, and you want to reboot properly and you want to do this revolution in the summer, I think you might need to just clean house a little bit overall, just generally speaking. I don't think they're finished, any of them. I still think they're fantastic players. I think maybe that they all just need a little bit of a reboot, and sometimes it's good to change an environment. I mean, none of them are Italian. They're all French or Portuguese, and so they don't have any like connection to Italy as such. So I think that's a I've been saying it for a couple of months now. I think it's a difficult discussions need to be had at Milan about the future of Milan, starting with who's the sporting director, starting with what project they want to have, who's going to be the coach, give that coach long-term project, a 2-year, 3-year project, bring in players that suit that coach. And if that means selling Maignan, Theo, Leao, lowering the wage bill to rebuild and reboot and say, okay, it's a 5-year project, so be it. Look, I think one of the things that has always stuck with me of all the interviews I've ever done was when I interviewed Giuseppe Bergomi and I asked him about the Suning. It was before Oaktree came in, took over, and Suning lost the club. And he said, the fans need something to dream about. They need something to believe in. If the fans have something to dream about, something to believe in, then they can accept pretty much anything. And I think that's what's broken at Milan. The fans have nothing to believe in. There's no dream that you can sell them or make them believe in. And that's the issue. I think that's what Milan need. I mean, if Milan were honest and said, we're starting over, it's year 0, we're bringing in a new sporting directorship, we're bringing in a new coach, we're resetting and starting all new with an identity of how we want to play. We're going to give this 3-5 years. Our first target next season is top 4. Milan fans would understand that, rather than this going back and forth from Pioli to Fonseca to Conceição, then in the summer buy this player, that player, bring in Emerson Royal, sell him 3 months later, Alvaro. Like that's what comes across as unprofessional. That's what comes across as hodgepodge, throwing shit at a wall and hoping something sticks kind of thing. And that's what the fans don't like. And you can't blame them for that. Of course, there's going to be tweaks along the way. But if they came and said to the Milan fans, the project is 4-5 years, it's going to be with De Zerbi, we're playing this kind of football, we're going with youth and some experience, this is what we're going to do, the fans would understand that, and then they would start looking and adjust themselves accordingly. Equally, you bring in Antonio Conte, the fans are going to expect results immediately because that's what Antonio Conte does. He brings results immediately. That's the key here. What is the project? What is the identity? What are we doing? And stick to it, and don't bounce about, and be better at communicating with the fans. Be better about who you are, what you want to do, and move forward. I mean, that's pretty much how I see it.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I think this summer's going to be, for that reason, this summer's going to be very, very big for Milan and the future and the next step and the next project. Is it a new project? Maybe
I think
it
it has to be. I think it has to be because, let's be honest, they didn't want to keep Maldini. They extended his contract on midnight, and he was driving out. If you remember that night, and then they got rid of him after the Pioli project when they wanted to move on from Pioli. They didn't really replace him. The people who they brought in to replace him were obviously not fit for purpose. Now, and that ended up in them spending lots of money on players, on a coach that was very questioned immediately when he came in, and he wasn't really back. They always, I said it on the pod this season, I always felt that Fonseca was hung out to dry. He was alone. No one protected him. No one at Milan was behind him. You can't do a project like that. You have to back your man. You have to back your guy. Otherwise, it just becomes not a serious project. Yeah. So, I think it's a serious, coherent, strategical project with clear goals, and build towards that. Similarly to what they did, Elliot, when they brought in Paolo Maldini and Ricky Massara. It took a couple of years, but they slowly got there because they were honest about who they were. Maldini was good at his job. Massara was good at his job. They did have financial balance of the books. They brought in a coach. They remember when they were choosing between Rangnick and to continue with Pioli, and they decided on continuing with Pioli. and that went on for 5 years, and that was very successful given where they were before they started. But then it ran its course, and instead of properly rejuvenating or not, refreshing and building something coherent for the next 5 years, you got this mishmash based on a, I'm saying this with tongue in cheek, based on a baseball movie with Brad Pitt. I mean, it's just, it's not serious. And then you
stole my line there, but yeah.
No, but and then you've got Zlatan Ibrahimovic there, who's still, his role is very undefined. His official title is senior advisor to Redbird at Milan. He's probably invested at Redbird, which makes him, as I've said before, kind of almost unsackable. But so, you need to resolve these issues. You need to have a clear CEO for sport. The reason why I thought Paratici, just someone like Paratici was a good idea, was because Paratici goes in, he's the CEO for sport. He decides the sporting line. And he's had success, maybe not financially, because him and math seem to be like oil and water. They don't really mix. But other than that, he's very experienced. He's very, he's very assertive. He knows what he wants. You've not really had that this season at Milan. And there's been like a power vacuum. And I think that's been part of the issue. So I think what you need to see is a coherent directorship on the sporting side, just like you have on the financial and non-off the pitch stuff with Scaroni, with Redbird, and I think they've done good things there. So that's kind of what I want to see. I want to see a coherent sporting project with clear guidelines, clear goals, and clear objectives, and then stick to that accordingly, pretty much.
Yeah.
I think that's what most Milan fans would want as well.